Subscribe to the Mystic Vibrations Shock of the Hour program today and never miss another episode. The Shock of the Hour is a Radio Anu exclusive program produced every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. By now, I am sure that you are aware that all our programs are packed with information, inspiration, mystic vibrations, as well as hot button topics. Every evening we enter into a different dimension, even if it is a part 2 of the previous program, whether it's history or mystery, biology or philosophy, domestic affairs or the locks of your hair. The mystic vibration is sure to bring something new and interesting to the table every evening. So never miss another episode again. Subscribe to the Shock of the Hour now. And don't forget your key Swahili word of the day and your daily scientific fact. So, to subscribe, give us an email, priestisaac27@gmail.com, or call or WhatsApp us today. Area code 1268-728-3162. The Shock of the Hour. Never miss another program. And a special note to all our new subscribers. All our new subscribers will receive a special copy of the DVD documentary, full length, The Night of the Black Tiger, The Divinity of Marcus Messiah God. And of course, we are very thankful, blessed love to each and every one. We glorify Kadamawa Haile Selassie I in all doings and all sayings, of course. Father and mother of creation, 1930, the 2nd of November, Haile Selassie officially was crowned at the same time, dually, with Empress Wazira Menen. And even if a man may not be able to understand certain understandings of connecting with prophecy, I think the fact that you would highlight and put Haile Selassie in such esteem and in such position as most ones do, at least, well, not most ones, but most ones of a conscious realms and those who have delved into their African pride and history and have, linked themselves with their agency and Rastafari and Ethiopian biblical and prophetic traditions, they will at least see Haile Selassie in some sort of divine fashion and prophetic fashion. So the fact that he has definitely gone beyond the tradition of crowning the king and then 3 days after crowning the empress in some sort of ceremony that is somewhat a lower version than his, he changed that whole system. And for the first time, at least in that ancient to modern understanding of the 3,000-year rulership of the Ethiopian kingship, maybe not from the beginning of time, but from that time. And he brought forth that science of creation back to life, where male and female were crowned together. Of course, in the ancient, way ancient, beyond history pages, glyphs and papyri, of course, there was that fullness because nature itself expresses that. You cannot run from that. The masculine and the feminine, the positive and the negative, as they call it, the he and the she. It's one spirit, it's one vibe. The she is in the he and the he is in the she. Oh yeah, if you look at the word she, take out the S, you get he. And if you add an R, you get her. So it's a oneness. Take your time. Don't fall off the chair. Yeah, I know how it is sometimes. But anyway, give thanks to Haile Selassie I. Glorify Empress Menen, We give thanks continually to the prophet, priest, and king, the father, the mother, and such creation bring forth the life now, which is the children. And from father and mother, you bring forth life and stars and cosmics and universes and galaxies. That's where you could now begin to talk about father and son. You can't talk about father and son and no mother there. And then that's why you could get into Father, Son, and Holy One, and Prophet, and Priest, and King, and these different things, because Prince Emmanuel himself has told us that they taught us that from one come all. You know, and mystically there's a science that one come out, because he himself teaches that. Not out of many one, but out of one many. But he himself, I've heard Prince Emmanuel himself say that. They say that it's from one come out. I say no, it's from two. Father and Mother of creation, Holy Emmanuel I, Selassie I, Jah, Rastafari. So what we're going to do on the Mystic Vibration, the shock of the hour for this evening, I'm going to be presenting an interview that was done by George Noory. Some of you who, especially if you're into studying of the other level, you would know of George Noory, you know. George Noory is really from that, what should I say, that clique of white scientists and white researchers and white explorers. Basically he has been doing a program for years, coast to coast. I used to listen to that several years ago, and I know he's related to the whole Gaia project. And now this program that we'll be looking at is a program he did entitled Beyond Belief. And why I must highlight from that stream, that thought frame, you know, it's not racism at all. It's just reality. There is a click in conscious thinking. Usually, Brother George Noory, who's basically almost a mediator, as a media man. But then you have people who play the mediator part plus the scientific part. For example, Wilcock, what's his name? David Wilcock.
Yeah.
You have Wilcock. You have Michael Tillinger. You have people like John Anthony West, who I do, you know, appreciate John Anthony West's work a lot. I've said that many times. You have Graham Hancock. You have a fella there that like to talk about the reptilians. His name is not even running in my mind, but I'm sure everybody knows exactly who I'm talking about. But the point is, these groups, or this group, although they may not all be connected with each other, these Europeans, let me say that, these Europeans who have brought to the world now their version of this consciousness and this awakening, it is obvious they're not quick to attribute the great works of this planet to the original people, which is the Africans. They always jump over our heads and go to the aliens, I must say. Now, this program, that's why I have an appreciation for John Anthony West. I've never come across his works where he's trying to, you know what I mean, put the original Africans aside and bring in somebody from Mars. But I know you're going to find this interview very interesting, because trust me, I ain't got a problem with the Mars thing. Oh no, maybe you don't know. I ain't got a problem with the Mars thing. I ain't got a problem with the next galaxy. I don't have a problem with the next planet and the next solar system. I don't have no problem. I'm a scientist, and probability and possibility is too extremely 2, 3, 4 high. You know, too high, but too high, extremely high. The possibility and probability that there are other Goldilocks regions out there only makes sense. Straight up. That alone, straight up. You know, but my problem is, you've heard me speak about UFOs and so-called flying saucers. And the same time they invented the flying saucer discovery, flying saucer theory, is the same time they opened the United Nations. You got to watch these people good and understand what the science is. So I'm saying that we are the original people as black people. And people may think you're a separatist or something. Well, I am a separatist on certain aspects. I'm not ashamed to say that, you know. But it's not, you cannot put my way of looking at this in no sort of jar to compare it to any sick, corroded way of thinking. I am saying that if you're going to tell me that we had other people here, maybe even before us, that were of higher intelligence than ourselves, well, what you're trying to tell me, can't you see that right here on the planet Earth we have different type of people? I mean, come on, let's not try to run around it. We have different type of people, and the fact is that the people we refer to as Africans and black people have been here for a longer, much longer time than the other people. Am I wrong? It's just the truth. And a lot of these monuments and artifacts and all of this high technology, you could find it around the time frame that we were at our heights. So why take away the credibility from us? Why do you want to give the Great Pyramid of Egypt to E.T.? Why do you want to give credit for the building of Her Emaket, which is the Sphinx, to somebody from Venus? You understand? When right here on planet Earth, we have that high technology. You know, they have inner Earths, brother. Inner Earths, they have a hollow Earth. They have higher beings living around us that some of us don't see. And some of the higher beings even come and radiate on this level, and we don't even know that they are amongst us. So even when they saw the Phoenix lights and the UFOs over Washington, D.C., when the people in the 1950s, when the people from the army came out and said, this is not our technology, I am not one that is going to quickly say, well, listen, that had to come from outside of our atmosphere. No, it came from right here, because we have high intelligence right here. So anyway, George Noory, that's a lengthy introduction there, isn't it? George Noory will be having an interview with a brother by the name of Billy Carson. And Billy Carson, he is of African descent. And it's important that I say that, because now when you listen to him, although you know you have a lot of the same mainstream ideas, but you could see him trying to attribute this higher technology to someone else outside of us, but someone not necessarily from beyond the clouds. And that is what I respect even in his narrative. And when you listen to it properly, you will see exactly where I am coming from. Because me personally, again, I don't have no problem with your extraterrestrial and your galactical movements. That ain't no problem to me. But my problem is that we as a people, especially those of us of African descent, need to come to grips that we are the gods of the planet, the gods and goddesses of the planet. And the reality is that all of this high technology that is around us from the ancient world has our fingerprints in it. Not no amphibious prints or no prints from no reptile or no reptilian from Jupiter. From right here on the planet Earth, the original black man and black woman created by the Most High was built with that technology higher than the angels to create the science that we see rotating and revolving around us. Even, we're going to get into some serious things tonight. We're going to be talking about fake moons. I know I did a program a few months ago or whatever it was about China creating this fake moon. But we're going to be talking about some real fake moons that people consider as real moons. Now, I'm not the one to tell you that, you know, the moon on Saturn is fake or whatever. But there's some moons, especially if you do your study, that they're strange even in their shape and certain aspects of how they stay. As if they were going through some sort of galactical space, World War I, II, or III. And that is very, very important. So anyway, I'm not going to hold you no more. What I want you to do, like myself, we're going to take in a bit of this interview with George Noory on Beyond Belief, and he'll be interviewing Billy Carson. And hey, let's just take it from there. Keep it
Well, welcome to Beyond Belief. I'm George Noory, and what a program we have in store for you. A special person who I have admired for years. His name's Billy Carson. And Billy, of course, has appeared on other Gaia programs. You've seen him before, talking about some incredible things about ancient civilizations, ancient technology, and things that have been going on. Billy, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be back.
And your new book, which is just out, is called what?
Compendium of the Emerald Tablets.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
How did you research things like this?
Well, you know, I started looking into the Sumerian tablets when I started looking at some of the images from Mars and other planets in our solar system by NASA and the European Space Agency. And I started thinking, these look like remnants of an ancient civilization. So when I started going on Google, I started noticing that there were tablets out there that talked about these types of ancient civilizations. So that's kind of how I really got into learning about Zechariah Sitchin and some of the other ancient books that have been written about these ancient tablets. So then I went directly to the source and started looking at the tablets myself to see what they said. I wanted my own understanding of them.
As you were looking at these, let's say online, did it just pop right out at you?
Well, no. Thankfully to the UCLA, they have an online library called the UCLA CDLI Cuneiform Library.
Okay.
And it allows you to take stone tablets off the virtual shelf and drop them into a translator.
Really?
And read them for yourself.
Technology at its best.
Absolutely.
Would civilizations be in shock today, knowing everything you know about past civilizations?
I think there would be an initial shock factor, but I believe that because we're very resilient people, I believe that people would initially be in shock and then eventually come into understanding that this is what really happened, especially if they can really grasp, understand it, and verify a lot of the information for themselves, which is why I try to put a lot of content out there so that I can create more researchers of people looking into this on their own, so they can come up with their own conclusions, and then they begin to feel more comfortable about the truth about the ancient past.
And Billy, what have you concluded? Have you concluded that past civilizations were just very high in technology, maybe were much older than people think, or that we had visitations from extraterrestrials and they kind of contributed to us?
I think it's a combination of both, George. I believe that we did have some visitations in the ancient past. I'm talking about deep antiquity, that did genetically modify some of the existing hominids on this planet. But I also even believe that further back before that initial visitation by the Anunnaki beings, that we may have already risen to a high level of civilization with prior people on this planet that could be our initial progenitors or our cousins, so to speak, and then those civilizations have risen and fallen. Kind of like what the Mayans talk about, that there have been 4 worlds and we're living in the 5th. Each civilization, according to some of the Indian Vedas, seems to rise and then reach a certain level and then fall again. And I think the Anunnaki came during a time where we had already fallen, and it kind of re-kickstarted our civilization by genetically modifying us and also adding some additional technology to this planet.
Billy, recently scientists have just discovered a 10,000-year-old series of sketches and etchings on rock in India, which depict UFOs and extraterrestrials. You can tell them as looking at these like alien grays with the big heads and the big eyes and little saucers in the background, flying saucers. Who would make that up 10,000 years ago unless they actually saw it?
That's a good point you bring up. I think people need to understand that in those ancient times when people were just starting to do writing and art, they didn't have time to do things for fun. Back then everything was micromanaged. Everything had a purpose. And even the cuneiform tablets, they're writing on these tablets, everything is done with a specific purpose and intent. And I don't think that people were just sitting around going, let me draw some of these funny shaped UFOs and some great aliens. I mean, they really drew what they've seen and what they've learned. And I do believe that when you see these ancient depictions of craft and aliens and so forth, like there's one in Australia also, this partially uncovered Egyptian temple in Carryong 9 in Australia that has a mothership UFO with little tiny UFOs coming out of it.
It's really amazing.
And it's an incredible thing, all in hieroglyphs. And I mean, when you see these things, you have to say to yourself, why would somebody take the time to make this up in ancient times? I think back then everything was so crucial. Just surviving was crucial. To make things like this up didn't seem realistic. I think they really drew what they saw.
Billy, what is the Enuma Elish?
The Enuma Elish are 7 tablets of cuneiform writing that were date back over 7,000 years, and they're located at the British Museum. These cuneiform tablets actually talk about the creation of our solar system as we know it right now, including how Earth was created and how we acquired our moon. It's an amazing story, and it's hard to understand for the average person who starts reading it because it almost sounds like it's people battling in the sky. But when you really break it down and understand it's the epic of the creation of our solar system itself.
That's amazing. It's almost biblical, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, the Bible copied a lot of the content from the Enuma Elish into Genesis.
At the British Museum, there's a fellow called Irving Finkel, and he talks a little about this.
Because the Cyrus cylinder was meant for a Babylonian audience, it was written in the Babylonian language, which is a Semitic tongue related to the modern languages of Hebrew and Arabic and Aramaic. The writing system which Cyrus's officials used was the traditional cuneiform script, which had been invented in ancient Iraq well before 3000 BC It is written by pressing a stylus, something a bit like a chopstick, into the surface of the clay which is nearly dry, and the signs which convey the sound of the language consist of different arrangements of these strokes. They're written one by one, and the reader has to join them up, and the sound emerges from the clay.
Billy, how in the world do they interpret that?
It's so amazing. I mean, really,
It is.
you know, the thing that's so beautiful about it is, at the time, many people were copying the Sumerian language over into their own languages. So we had kind of a key to understand what the Sumerian text was saying. Luckily, because many people, the Sumerians almost seem to have branched out and kickstarted so many civilizations outside of themselves. And because of that, everybody translating, you know, from the Sumerian into their own languages gave us a key to understand what those cuneiform texts were saying.
Has Zecharia Sitchin, the late Zecharia Sitchin, who wrote his books called The 12th Planet, has he investigated those?
Absolutely. He has investigated the 7 tablets of creation and the Enuma Elish, and he has written about them and added them into his books, almost virtually word for word. And I'm glad you bring up Sitchin because so many people had tried to put him down at the end of his career.
Yes.
But in my personal opinion, he was one of the greatest researchers in the history of this planet. And his work, to me, was second to none. Now that I've looked into other authors that have translated these texts, and I myself have now gone and translated these texts, especially the Enuma Elish, I come to the understanding that all of the stories are fundamentally the same, with a couple of different things here and there.
And what is that conclusion? Tell us what you think happened many years ago.
The conclusion that I personally have come to is that there were beings, advanced beings that are our progenitors, that came to this planet in ancient times to strip mine this planet for resources, but not only Earth, the Moon, Mars, and a couple of other moons of Jupiter as well. And they came to get these resources, and during that time frame, they lived here and mined this planet themselves for about 250,000 years. And then at one point, the working class became very agitated from the workload and decided that they were going to revolt against the leaders, which were Enki and Enlil. And at that time, a decision was made to create a slave worker, which would be, you know, what we are, Homo sapien, from an existing hominid. They didn't literally create a human being from dust, but they took
something was already on the planet.
Something was already on the planet, and they took that something, that hominid, and they took an egg out of one, cleaned up the genetic material, put the Anunnaki genetic material inside of it, embedded it into the womb of one of the Anunnaki women, and she took it to full term and gave birth 10 months later to the Adamu, or the first man.
Sounds like Adam and Eve.
Absolutely.
So a lot of this correlates with the Bible as well, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, literally, the Bible and the Torah almost took a lot of these verses out of the Sumerian tablets, almost word for word.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Now, let's go back to Sitchin's work a little bit, if you can, Billy.
Sure.
And tell us about the Anunnaki. That is the name given to a race of beings from another planet, right?
Yeah.
Nibiru was
Correct.
the planet they call?
Yeah, Nibiru was the planet. Now, depending on who was translated or who have looked at the tablets, they could be from Sirius, they could be Nomos from Sirius, they could be from this planet called Nibiru. Some people think they may be from the Orion. Okay. However, either way you look at it, everybody comes to the same conclusion that beings that we look like them came here to this planet, and Sitchin came up with the same conclusion. Primarily, I think he came up with that conclusion from these tablets, because these tablets actually mention Nibiru. They mention Marduk. They mention who was the son of Enki, and who basically is now the current ruler, supposedly, of this realm until the next age of Aquarius really comes in 2025. And it also mentions Enlil and many other people. And it talks about the planet of the crossing. It talks about genetic manipulation of the existing hominid on this planet. It talks about all of that in these 7 tablets. So his story is fundamentally based on something that had already been established and written about since the 1800s. It wasn't something that he made up.
Now, this person that you have mentioned several times, Enki, who was he?
Enki was a son of Anu. Anu was the main king or the main leaders. That's what we get Anunnaki, who came here. Okay, he came here a little bit after his sons arrived. They call them the heroes of old.
The sons got here first.
Right, Enki and Enlil. Now, Enki, his actual name is Ea Enki. So Ea, the first 2 letters, A, and Ki was Earth. So he became the ruler or the king of Earth, even though his brother Enlil ran everything.
Okay.
He had a higher rank than Enlil, but something happened which it's not clear exactly how it happened, but his brother Enlil superseded him at some point and became, gained complete control of the planet, even though the planet was named after Ea Enki.
And they had the ability to breathe our atmosphere, our air, and everything else?
Absolutely. They come from a planet that's most likely very similar makeup to Earth.
Okay. So we could live on that planet.
We could live on that planet, exactly. And first I thought that might have been outlandish until I started researching Mercury, which is a planet in our solar system very close to the sun. But now they've discovered that Mercury rotates very slow on its axis.
And even before we get to Mercury, I mean, we could have tell him that about the Mercury, 88 days. But something interesting as he's speaking about that Aya Enki. I mean, most of us, we know about Enki, and I'm going to actually take this off for a moment. I'm coming forward to that interview there. But I found that very interesting, that he's speaking about the Enki. We all know of Enki, but how many of us know of the Aya Enki? And if you notice that whole Aya Enki thing that he was speaking about, he made a direct link with the earth. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting that now is because one of our priests, specifically from the foundation, Bobo Shanti Hill itself, which is the Honorable Priest Imani, a few years ago, 2016 specifically, when there was the visitation of Prince Hermes Selassie to the Congress in Jamaica, 10 miles Bull Bay. And that's in Jamaica, Bobo Shanti, Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress headquarters. And there was a presentation made to the Prince Hermes, which means Jeremiah, Prince Hermes Sahale Selassie. There was a presentation, well, there were many presentations made to him, but there was a specific presentation made by Priest Imani, Priest Imani, the faithful one. And in his presentation, he was speaking about that whole concept of the term Aya, just like you have Aya Enki, and showing that ancient African connection with Aya. I'm sure some of you have seen when we have taken the term Elias and Isaias, and we have formed the term Selassie and Elijah and turn it around, take out the J, and get Haile Selassie. Remember the letters that we remain with. Leave the term Aya. Aya, you know that. Take the words Elias and Isaias and Elijah, you get Haile Selassie with 3 letters remaining. And they spell Aya. So I want you to listen to this little history that the Honorable Priest Imani from the Bobo Shanti House, one of our leading priests, is giving here to
Give thanks, my Lord, for the high presence, Give thanks to also be in the presence of the eye. My name is the Honorable Priest Imani, and I am a member of the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress, which is founded by our father Melchizedek, the high priest, the king of Salem, the Prince of Peace, the king of Jerusalem, who met the high grandfather in 1966, and His Majesty, who is the returning Abraham, handed over 1/10 of the spoil to the high priest Melchizedek Emmanuel, which is to restore the monarchy and the liberty of Ethiopia. We also know that Ethiopia did not mean...
Now listen to this. And if you've ever seen this video, you could see it on the YouTube on the Redeem 77, Redeem 77, that's the YouTube channel, 77, Redeem 77, you see the video. And you could even, look at the Prince, the Honorable Prince Sahale Selassie, Emir Sahale Selassie. You could see, him taking in what Honorable Priest Imani is giving to him as far as information, and there's certain points that the Honorable Priest made, and you could just see, like, the Prince like, okay, I get you, like, yes, that sounds familiar. And because Priest Imani was showing him, well, listen, this whole Greek thing about Ethiopia meaning the land of the burnt face and so and so. I mean, that may be us, but it's deeper than that. That's basically what he was saying.
What the Greek says it meant, that it's the land of the sunburned people. It's a lie. We know that Ethiopia means the land of gift of yellow gold to God, because originally it was the land of Aya, which meant the land of gold.
See that? The land of Aya. Aya Enki, the land of Aya.
And And where Melchizedek sent his son Ethel.
And where Melchizedek sent his son Ethel.
To settle with 49 priests anointed.
To settle with 49 priests anointed.
After the order of Melchizedek in 4000 BCE.
4000
Holy Emmanuel Hence, Ethiopia bears the name of Melchizedek's first son Ethel, who got the vision from God, that when he reached the land of Ayab, we should take the name El of his name and add Ayab. Hence, today, as I say, Ethiopia bears the name of Melchizedek's first son. Holy Emmanuel And in memory of the visit, my Lord,
vibration there, clear. As I said, that's Honorable Priest Imani. I just given his outlook of that situation there. Interesting. Let us continue with the interview.
There's billions of tons of water, and also has biological material on it. And this comes from the Mercury Messenger mission that just came back, last year. So now you look at the gases of Mercury and you start to realize it's got more oxygen than Earth.
Sure.
And it's got all the other gases needed for us to actually breathe on Mercury. So imagine if we can land on Mercury, you could probably pop our cap and take a deep breath.
It just wasn't so close to the sun, right?
Exactly. Well, the thing about it is because it's rotating so slow on its axis, it actually has a lot of areas closer to the poles that are very habitable now, NASA says. And so now they're planning missions there because there's areas where, like I said, billions of tons of organic material and ice water, and even some liquid water on the planet's surface, because it's located in a region where it's sustainable. So it's very interesting. So when I saw that, I said, you know what? It's possible now in my mind for another being to come here from a planet that could have very similar gases. Maybe they have a little bit more krypton and carbon, or maybe they have a little bit more oxygen or less oxygen, but overall, they were able to sustain and breathe here.
And we already have the instruments here on this planet to decipher what kind of elements are on other planets a long, long way away. And we're able to say that they may have this atmosphere, they may have this, they might have water. I'm sure the Anunnaki had more sophisticated equipment. They were able to pinpoint planet Earth immediately and say, this planet has everything we need to do what we need to do.
Absolutely. They call them the tablets of destiny. And on this tablet of destiny, they had these, they call them crystal screens. Kind of like, in my mind, I think like an iPad in a way.
Right.
But on this screen, they would, the first person, Alalu, scan the Earth, and so that based on the light, the information from the light of the planet, you can get information like spectrometer, you can get the oxygen levels, everything you just said. You can get what's in the atmosphere and everything else, the temperatures. And also, they found the gold as well before they even arrived here.
You hear this?
So you're right. The technology will allow somebody to scan a planet, and now we can scan planets 30, 40, 50 million light years away and analyze the light coming from that planet and break it down and tell you exactly what chemicals exist there.
Does any of this negate Genesis or the Bible, or does it augment it?
It actually augments it. It gives it a much bigger view. In other words, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, all of these books, they mention Marduk and all these people, believe it or not. However, in a very short, small version of the story. If you look at the Epic of Atrahasis and the Seven Tablets of Creation, you get the big story. You get a much bigger epic versus what the Bible has taken small parts of it, somebody over time, many, many hundreds of years after the people that they're talking about, sometimes even thousands of years, are already gone and passed away. I think a lot of people confuse the Bible with being written in real time as events happen, but in true reality, the Bible was written hundreds of years after events happened.
That's a very interesting point.
So you're looking at something that's basically just copied information from much more ancient texts and slightly modified with a lot of, over 8,000 bad translations just in the modern King James Version
But it
alone.
does not negate the existence of a God, does it?
It doesn't negate the existence of a God. I think people get that confused a lot. They think if you talk about Anunnaki and beings coming here and everything else, that you're trying to say God doesn't exist. I personally believe that God does exist, in my opinion, just because of quantum physics.
Right.
Because quantum physics proves that there is a creator of this realm. Everything has a specific design, and mathematically you can calculate it. So I believe that there is a creator. But what happens is in the Bible, I don't believe that the people talking in the Bible that are saying that they're a God, I don't believe that's the creator of the universe itself. I think those are Anunnaki or advanced beings masquerading as a God, but they're not the actual creator of the universe itself.
And of course, the origins of the universe is a topic that really comes up for a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that I even bat my head against the wall trying to figure out, how did this happen?
It's really an incredible thing that when you look at the history of the universe itself, you get the Big Bang, the most popular theory that's out there. What I've discovered in my personal research is that the universe may be holographic by nature. In other words, we may be living in an ancestor simulation, meaning that
Created by?
creating by an ancestor civilization, another civilization above us, and there may be many layers to reality. We may be one of trillions or maybe even an infinite number of simulations, and we ourselves have already started making these simulations. And what people tend to think when they hear the term holographic universe is that, oh, you're trying to say that we're not real. But it doesn't mean that. It means that we're real, but we're living in a fully immersed light matrix. It's already been scientifically proven that everything in this entire universe is made of light. Even the light you can't, you can't see, dark matter, dark energy, even that's light. Everything is light. Atoms are mostly empty space. And so what we're basically starting to find out now scientifically is that everything that we consider to be solidity is actually an illusion. Everything that we think is matter is an illusion. The only thing that truly exists in the third dimension is consciousness. That's the only real thing. And that might even be broadcast in here from a source, from a singularity somewhere. And consciousness has kind of divided itself into trillions of entities so that it can experience the third dimension subjectively. But overall, the actual creator of this realm, which quantum physics proves is the creator because of the mathematics behind everything, the Fibonacci sequence, pi, phi, all of that, we start to look and think we may be living in a simulation. And to add more credence to that, when you look at the video game called The Sims, which we have created, there's people in there, they have families, they have lives, they have jobs to go to, they have dogs and pets and vacations and everything else. And now scientists are saying that within the next 8 to 10 years, the Sims may be conscious because of this AI technology. So now if they're conscious, we have now ourselves created our own simulated universe.
Could somebody quickly wipe us out, merely erase us by hitting a key on a board?
It's very possible. Maybe that could be one of the reasons why we always seem to reach a certain level and start over. I mean, who knows? It's very hard to say. It's very, very hard to say. But I know that James Gates Jr. at the University of Maryland is a quantum physicist and also a theoretical physicist. He discovered that the fabric of space-time itself, he was actually interviewed by Neil Tyson deGrasse in a show one time. It was actually a live stage show where they were doing a talk. And he actually stated this on the stage, that the fabric of space-time itself runs off of something called these Adinkra codes. And these Adinkra codes are the same exact codes that run search engine browsers and websites.
Interesting.
So the fabric of space-time is a code that we are already using now to create programs on a computer screen.
It is baffling, to be sure, that the existence of you, the existence of me, might be predicated on some other civilization that has created it.
Yeah.
Simply created it. I can't get it yet. I just don't understand the Big Bang Theory, how something would start from nothing. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll get those answers one day.
Maybe one day.
It's not easy. Going back to the Anunnaki, Billy, and what they wanted, they came here, as you said, to mine gold.
Yes.
Zecharia Sitchin has always said they needed to sprinkle gold particles in their atmosphere, almost to shield their planet from the sun. They're in our solar system. How does that work?
Well, gold is a very, very technological item or element. And I think that a lot of people who are into gold and gold jewelry and everything else, they don't realize that they've been fooled into thinking gold has a value for decoration and monetary means. Actually, what happened was, in ancient times, gold was mined by the Anunnaki before humans even got involved to create this substance, this powdered dust that they can actually hoist into their atmosphere.
Powdered gold.
Powdered gold. And to add credence to that, my vehicle that I actually drive doesn't have any window tint. It's a higher-end car, and the glass in my vehicle has powdered gold in the windows to reflect UV light to keep the interior of the car cool.
Isn't that what the astronauts used as a shield when they went to the moon?
So you see, gold is very technological, and you need it for radiation-hardened computer circuit boards. You need it for satellites. The thing about gold is you get no loss of electricity no matter how long the distance. It's a great electrical conductor. And you don't lose anything in friction. So, and you can meld it. It's very malleable. You can mold it to almost any shape.
And I think, I think this aspect of that interview is so key because there's so many of us that we don't give gold a second look outside of, the bling bling, the ring and the chain and the things. The gold teeth and the flavor. We don't really take the time to understand the electromagnetic energy that it has and the power that, it emanates and how it, coincides with the sun and all of these different things. So you see the great Kemetic gods, gold, Tutankhamun mask, well, not just the mask, everything, gold, the Amun, gold. So you see the importance of gold, even down to today, everybody gold. We don't even mention platinum, but even on the periodic table chart, platinum really is said to have more value than gold. But gold is the thing. You take the L, which L is the name of God, Elohim, God. You take the L out of gold, you get the word God. Gold is powerful, not just for bling.
So it's a very, very interesting thing. And because much later when they had the revolt and decided that they wanted to have slaves help them do this work, which they've now, Michael Tellinger has broadcast actually on one of the shows on Gaia, Hidden Origins, they show that they discovered the location of the very first gold mines that humans worked at Enlil's house on the hill. And it's still there, over 100,000 years ago. It's still there right now.
How deep are these mines?
Oh, they go pretty deep, and they've brought out of these mines different things going down many layers, little discoveries of pottery and so forth.
I wonder how much gold they extracted from our...
Probably a lot, and there's so much more. There's so much gold and oil on this planet, it almost makes you start to think that the planet itself is producing it.
Well, I believe that.
Yeah.
Very interesting point.
With oil, the abionic oil theory, that this planet is, creating it when it was formed.
Exactly. I don't think we'll ever reach peak oil. I think that's an illusion. I believe the oil is the blood of the earth itself.
I agree.
And gold may very well be another element that's being created by the earth itself as well, because it almost seems like with the amount of gold that was taken out of this earth already, and there's still so much more, where is all this gold coming from? It's amazing.
Are we ever going to really get these answers? I mean, we've got researchers like you, the late Zechariah Sitchin, Michael Tellinger, and Jason Martell, and people who have investigated this. But is mainstream science, Billy, ever going to come up and say exactly what you've just told us today?
It won't happen until we get to the point where there's a real revolution of consciousness on this planet. And what I mean by that, where there's enough people that have finally woken up, that want to do enough research and enough digging, and it may be 100 years, maybe 200, it may be 300 years from now, but there's going to come a point in time where enough people, in other words, even the people that are working in these science universities and so forth are going to come, they're going to be conscious, and they're going to say, you know what, it's time to put the information out there, time to tell the people the truth. And maybe at some point long in the future, we'll get enough information for people to realize that there was a very, very incredible past on human history.
I am fascinated by our own solar system and the planetary systems, how Earth was formed, how the moon was formed. These objects that are in our solar system are truly remarkable. What do you think happened to form all of this?
Well, according to the Enuma Elish, there's this huge battle between the gods. And the gods in the Enuma Elish in the beginning of the epic are actually planetary bodies and spatial bodies, even asteroids and moons.
Okay.
So it's kind of an esoteric way to
understand the parables behind this.
Exactly. And one of the planets in this epic is called Nibiru. This is where the name Nibiru actually comes from.
This is that 10th planet.
This is exactly. And it comes through the solar system. But there's another planet in our solar system that's about 4 to 6 times the size of Earth, and it's actually called Tiamat. And it's just outside of the orbit of Pluto. Actually,
now you got to listen to this now. Obviously, for those who know the epic itself, the mythology, it's the Sumerian mythology, somewhat like the Greek mythology. The gods. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with planets first. These are gods, but then the planets, the heavenly bodies, have been given the names of the gods, and according to the history of the astronomy of the heavens, whether it be precise or not. For example, the Tiamat that crashed into the other planet, creating probably the asteroid belt and all of that, that has been put into legend, that has been put into story form. We're known for that, you know that. So studying the astronomical movements of the heavens, and planets colliding with other planets, and moons being created, and asteroid fields being formed. We've used that given them name, created human-like, God-like images, and put it in story form and cuneiform and hieroglyphs and papyri, and that's how we do these things. You know, so that is why today now we've been so brain-scrubbed that even when we hear some of this sort of information, we lose it. Either we go to the extreme and flip, or we just totally deny it, like, oh, I don't want to hear that strange thing. Not understanding there is, as the old people would say around here, pick sense out the nonsense. There is some level of understanding within this science.
I'm sorry, just outside the orbit of Mars, I'm sorry.
Is that what collided with Earth a long time ago?
Okay, here's what happened. Nibiru, or later in the epic, a more recent version, they call it Marduk, because Marduk wanted to be the one that...
Marduk is Nibiru?
No, but yeah, exactly. Marduk is Nibiru. He also wanted credit. When he ruled, he wanted credit for it, so he changed it in the newer
They
version.
had egos then, too,
Yeah, big egos. Big egos. He changed Nibiru to Marduk. But anyway, he crashed into Tiamat and split Tiamat apart. A huge chunk of that, along with the water and organic material, swept into the location we are now and became Earth. Gravitationally, we pulled Kingu, which is one of the moons of Tiamat, with us.
Which is our moon.
Which is our moon now. So we pulled the moon along, but the moon was never a result of an impact with Earth from another object. The moon is a result, it was already there with another planet named Tiamat. The rest of Tiamat crumbled up into huge chunks and became the hammered bracelet, which is talked about in the Bible, the Sumerian tablets, and also we know it as the asteroid belt. So that became the asteroid. The asteroid belt is actually an exploded planet.
I believe that.
Yeah, and now Mars, according to some of the other study and research, could have been a moon of this Tiamat, which then gained its own orbit around the sun, which could explain why it has a very strange orbit. At certain points, it's 140 million miles away from Earth, and at other points, when it's in perigee, it's only 40 million miles away. It's got a very strange orbit around our sun, but it almost looked like it was thrown into that orbit after the explosion of Tiamat.
There are a lot of strange moons around some of the planets. You know, Europa, for example, around Jupiter. There's another one called Iapetus around Saturn. And Mike Vera, when he appeared on one of the Gaia programs, Deep Space, talked about that.
Researchers point out that a very odd moon orbits Saturn. Some believe this moon could be an artificial planet.
Iapetus is very different because unlike most of the moons of Saturn, which are in a kind of ecliptic plane, it's off at about a 60-degree angle. When pictures of the horizon came back that were showing the surface of Iapetus, not only was there this bizarre rim around the middle of the object. There was this edge, 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 straight line, straight line, straight line. Wow. It was not a rounded spherical horizon. And actually, if you do the calculations and you see how long these straight lines are and put them together, it comes out in the shape of something called a dodecahedron. Iapetus appears to be an artificial satellite. It could very well have been the base from which the progenitors, call them the preservers, call them whatever you want to call them, operated. They actually...
This is what I'm talking about. A geometric shape. A moon.
It operated on this moon of Saturn and did different things to different planets in the solar system.
All right, Billy, I'll give it to Mike Vera that it's a very unusual moon. Yeah. But an artificial moon? Is that a stretch?
I don't think it's a stretch. I mean, from my understanding, the Anunnaki seem to be about at least 1 million years ahead of us.
Oh, boy.
And I base that on the fact that they
Which is nothing in time.
It's nothing. It's a blink of an eye in geological time spans. I mean, literally a blink of an eye. And they came here 450,000 years ago to mine this planet for resources, and also other planets and moons in our solar system for resources, especially Mars, which is one of the reasons that caused revolt because of the labor they were doing on Mars. But they had the technology back then. And even in the Enuma Elish, it talks about them coming here with technology and with ships and everything else. So I really believe that the ability to create an artificial moon was not beyond their reach, and that they were part of the Atlantean civilization. And the reason why I think that is because the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, Thoth is actually the son of Enki, and Enki is the son of Anu, so this is all Anunnaki based. He calls himself the Sons of Atlantis, or him and his crew, the Sons of Atlantis. Yeah. His tablets were written by him over 36,000 years ago. Wow. And in those tablets, he claimed to have built the Great Pyramid with all the magic science or advanced technology in it, in the Emerald Tablet. But the reason why this is important is because in the opening scene of the Emerald Tablet, he flies from one location. His dad tells him to take the crew to another location, the land of Kim, which is ancient Egypt, land there, He lands, when he opens the doors to his ship, the people come running at him with hammers and everything to beat him up.
And humans of the time?
Humans of the time. This is after the Great Flood, because he mentions that the Great Flood, the waters had just subsided.
Right.
He raises his staff and he sends out a ray of vibration, freezing these humans in their tracks. So here we have a ship that takes off, flies over to a location, lands, they open a door, and he picks up this staff and he jolts the people with some type of electronic ray. And 36,000 years ago, where he also talks about building the Great Pyramid and building the Sphinx. So you see the technology that we're talking here is phenomenal for back then. So you can only imagine what they had the capability of doing, in ancient times.
Well, but who would have created a false moon like Iapetus? How would that have happened?
Well, you're talking about an object that's being built in space. So it actually makes it very easy to do. All you need to have is the technology to sustain yourself in space. You need to have the architectural, know-how to do it.
It's huge.
It's huge. It's massive. But these Anunnaki, when you look on the Earth, look at the stones at Baalbek. Look at a lot of the megalithic structures around this planet. We have super massive stone structures on this planet.
And that's a good point that he's making there. We have super massive megalithic stone structures on this planet. And we just completed our winter solstice experience right here in Antigua. Ancient and modern Anu. It's so interesting, Anu, the Anu. I mean, there are a lot of things I haven't gone into yet. I don't think I've ever done any program going to the depths of the Anunnaki. No, I haven't. But obviously, there got to be something in the Bible as it relates to not just Anu. Remember, this is where I'm speaking to you from, is the Anu, And the Anunnaki are the children of the Anu. Just sit for a while and meditate. You should at least have an idea of where we're going to come from. Because remember, as he said, the megaliths, the stone megaliths are so important and key as it relates to Anu and Inki and Tahuti, Jahuti, the thoughts. And remember, where you have these megalithic sites, you usually have gold underneath, at least water. And as he was saying there, the house of Inki, they have discovered shafts and gold mines under the house of Inki. Now, then again, for him to say that, it gives this this realistic aspect to the story of Inki. But of course, we've been studying that for a while, even in Zimbabwe. You find some of these megalithic sites. They talk about the gold mines that are underneath and the shafts and these different things that they have found. The house of Inki, because that's one of the main things about Inki in the mythos. Inki is, for lack of a better term, a gold digger. Right, and that's exactly the vibration. So when you start to get into Anu, because you could look at it from Zecharia Sitchin's point of view all day long, no disrespect. But you see, this is ancient and modern, and in fact, a lot of the Zecharia Sitchin theology, to me, is not really ancient nor modern. It's just opinions, straight up. That's if you are upset, I don't really care. Straight up, no offense, I mean, I'm not going to be here to run behind the skirts of Zecharia Sitchin and Michael Tillinger, and I listen to these people properly, and David Icke. I listen to these people well. And he could interview Corrado Mutwa all day long. I listen to them well. They don't have no space for I and I in their philosophy. I've been studying these people for years, man. Over 20 years. Studying Ike. Everybody's been watching Ike, especially when he was on his reptilian rant. Everybody was loving Ike. And what's his name? The fella there with the fingerprints of the gods, we mentioned him earlier, trying to say that is the Knights of the Templars, Bill Lalibela. What's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? He went to Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom the other day trying to attribute all of that to some people in flying saucers. So that's why sometimes the information that these fellas bring is okay, you know. But they have their own agenda. And remember, this is war. This is not just the exchanging of ideas. This is war. Michael Tillinger, whatever his name is, every chance he get, he trying to disrespect Akhenaten. This is war. So I listen to them killers good. Pardon me. I listen to them good. I get a little excited sometimes. I listen to them good. You understand? They can't solve the problem. They're just guessing like almost anybody else. No matter how much information and inspiration they get, they're just guessing like anyone else. The real Anunnaki would have to come now and express this knowledge to the people. Hey, time well spent. Of course, you know we can't stay here forever. It's a lot of time, a lot of space. Talking about the mystic vibration, the shock of the hour. Yeah, give thanks, as I said, right here in Anu. Just completed our 21st day, December, and 23rd day of December double hike, winter solstice hike. And of course, for those who are looking forward to joining us for the 21st day of March. What? Yep, the 21st day of March 2018. We definitely will be doing the equinox hike. That's Thursday now. It's going to be a Thursday. The 21st of March is a Thursday. The equinox hike specifically amongst the megaliths to align with the movements of the sun and everything in between. You could definitely contact us as you always do via email, priestisaac27@gmail.com, and make your reservation early. Don't be waiting for no last minute. Already now is the time for you to start to plan and plot and put things aside to make sure you could come to Antigua and visit us for the 21st day of March, where we will be definitely putting on a mighty equinox. That's the day when the day and night is equal right here amongst the megaliths, Green Castle Hill. So it's going to be a great experience. Remember, if you have no idea where we are, you could definitely get a copy of our book. Don't forget the book Anu, Ancient and Modern. Anu, Ancient and Modern. And while you are at it, remember our book, The True Biblical Land of Israel. These books are available for your library, your e-library. That's the True Biblical Land of Israel. That's one book. And Anu, Ancient and Modern Revisited, that's the second book. And Anu really goes into the mystics of Green Castle Hill and the spirit of the land of Antigua. So you need to touch upon that. And don't forget the Night of the Black Tiger. The Night of the Black Tiger, which is our third official documentary, full-length documentary, The Divinity of Marcus Messiah Garvey. Get a copy of that as well. And of course, just recently released our newest video lecture talking about Semenkari. All of these are available, plus much more. All you have to do is to contact us via email. priestisaac27@gmail.com. You know, if you know your Bible and you do not know your history, the knowledge of your Bible will become a mystery. And you know, it takes some real eyes to realize the real lies that are amongst us. Until such time, subscribe to the Mystic Vibrations Shock of the Hour program today. And never miss another episode. The Shock of the Hour is a Radio Anu exclusive program produced every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. By now, I am sure that you are aware that all our programs are packed with information, inspiration, mystic vibrations, as well as hot button topics. Every evening, we enter into a different dimension, even if it is a part 2 of the previous program, whether it's history or mystery, biology or philosophy, domestic affairs or the locks of your hair. The mystic vibration is sure to bring something new and interesting to the table every evening. So never miss another episode again. Subscribe to the Shock of the Hour now. And don't forget your key Swahili word of the day and your daily scientific fact. So, to subscribe, give us an email, priestisaac27@gmail.com. or call or WhatsApp us today. Area code 1268-728-3162. The shock of the hour. Never miss another program. And a special note to all our new subscribers. All our new subscribers will receive a special copy of the DVD documentary, full length, The Night of the Black Tiger, The Divinity of Marcus Mosiah Garvey.